What's up, everyone? John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo here. We now know the when. Apple's announcement for their iPhone 5 or iPhone 4S keynote is coming on October 4th. The big question is, what are they going to announce? So stick around and let me give you my predictions. So unlike last year's keynote when we knew exactly what the iPhone 4 was going to be, we now are back to the old days of really knowing nothing. It's been pretty commonly thought that Apple was going to announce two phones, presumably one called an iPhone 4S, which is going to be an evolutionary design of the iPhone 4 aimed at the lower end market, and then a redesigned iPhone 5 specced out to the gills, ready to do battle with the Samsung Galaxy S2s and the Droid Bionics of the world. I feel a little sad that I can no longer include WebOS in that competitors category, but that's what we thought. What is Apple actually going to announce? Well, the past couple of weeks have gotten really interesting. We've heard rumors of Sprint saying, hey, we're going to cap our data, and then Sprint saying, no, we're not going to cap our data. We've seen Apple logos pop up in Sprint's inventory. We've heard grumblings of T-Mobile perhaps carrying the iPhone 5 or iPhone 4S. Certainly AT&T and Verizon, we know are going to have it. It's been tough to filter through all the rumors to find out what fact or nugget of fact, which is kind of a gross thing to say, might be in there. So let me go ahead and run you through what I think we're going to see. I do think we are going to see two new phones. When the iPhone 4 was announced, you might remember, this is now almost a year and a half ago, there was that whole antenna gate thing. If you held the phone with your left hand, you lost all your bars of service, and it was a legitimate issue. They had to hold a whole keynote talking about it. I think Apple is pretty unhappy with the antenna design of the iPhone 4. Certainly when that antenna gate thing happened, they couldn't recall all the devices, so they gave you free bumpers and they sort of said, my bad, and they went along their merry way, and the iPhone 4 became one of the best-selling devices. Internally, Apple is known for their design acumen and their design perfection. So I think the iPhone 4S is going to look very similar to the iPhone 4 with that antenna issue fixed. I think from the spec standpoint, we're still going to have that A4 chip in there. I think we're going to have the same amount of RAM in there. We may have a bit of a bigger screen, up to 4 inches, but mostly I think it's going to look exactly like the current iPhone 4, probably coming in at that $99 price point. Traditionally, when Apple's released new phones, their previous generation device is what filters into that lower end price point, but there's been an onslaught of Android phones coming out that are at varying price points, from the high ends, like the Droid Bionics, or to the low ends, like some of the LG devices that have been coming out recently. There's really a huge gambit of price, and Apple, if they're going to have one phone, has to compete across the huge broad spectrum. Two phones will give them a bit more ammunition. But the iPhone 4S, let's say it's coming. Let's say it's going to come to $99 price point. What about the iPhone 5? Are we going to see an iPhone 5? iPhone 4S, we saw OtterBox doing some case mock-ups and some packaging for those case mock-ups that said iPhone 4S on it. But what about iPhone 5? I think we're going to see an iPhone 5, and this is really just speculation. I think Apple needs to make a splash in the smartphone world. Some would argue that they've been passed up by Android over the past year and a half since the iPhone 4 has been announced, and I would definitely fall in that camp. Android specs and Android phones come out fast and furious, but there are a select few that completely best the iPhone, from not only a spec standpoint, but from a software optimizing that hardware, which Apple always had a big advantage of because they control the whole process. You take something like the Galaxy S2, which is coming for most major carriers, with the exception of Verizon, or of course you can get it unlocked if you don't want to pick up the carrier version, is an extremely well-spec'd and zippy phone that does just about anything that you need, and you get that Android customization. So Apple needs to make a splash from the hardware standpoint. Those are gorgeous looking phones that Samsung's coming out with. Apple needs to compete. I think we are going to see that teardrop design that we've heard rumored about in the iPhone 5. I think we're going to have almost an edge-to-edge, close to bezel-less screen. Think about those sort of Samsung smart TVs that have no bezel on the side. They look pretty awesome. Probably in the 4-inch variety. Certainly we're going to see the A5 processor in there. That's going to give you dual-core NIS. We're going to see an upgrade in RAM to 1 gigabyte. On the back, we're going to see an upgrade in camera to 8 megapixels. Been rumors that it's going to be Sony produced. Doing this a lot. That's supposedly going to be the specs, and the highlight of the show, I'm guessing, is going to be iOS 5, which I think Apple still has a few tricks up their sleeve. So we've seen Twitter integration in iOS 5, we've seen notifications drop down, we've finally seen some better notifications on the home screen. But what about some hidden things? What about voice assist? We're hearing a lot of rumors that voice assist is going to be included in iOS 5 and sort of a voice assistant. So not only can you look crazy when you have a Bluetooth headset on and walking around, you can look even crazier when you were just yelling at your phone and nobody's on the other end. iPhone, make me dinner reservations. You can point at it and yell at it. Presumably we're going to see that as well. We may also get Facebook integration, similar to what we have with iOS 5 with Twitter integration. Facebook will be native there as well, so you can go ahead and upload a picture right from your Photos application. You can update your status and all that kind of goodness. We may also see the launch, totally unrelated I guess, of a Facebook application for the iPad at this event. Maybe we'll see Zuckerberg up there on stage with Tim Cook. Don't expect Steve Jobs to be there as well. He is, of course, stepped down. So that's sort of the recap of the rumors. So what about carriers? What are we going to see from a carrier standpoint? Well, this is where things get a little bit tricky. Verizon, it runs on a CDMA network. Their LTE network, which is their 4G, runs on a different standard based on GSM. AT&T is a GSM standard. Their LTE network, they're just sort of rolling out with no phone supported right now. Again, a GSM technology. Sprint is completely CDMA, and they've got WiMAX for their 4G. T-Mobile has HSPA Plus, which is GSM. Very confusing. So let me go ahead and cut one of those off right there. I do not think we're going to have an iPhone 5 or iPhone 4S for T-Mobile at launch. Not to say we're not going to get one a few months later, but do not expect one at launch. T-Mobile has said it's kind of up to Apple what they want to do. We'd love to take it, but hey, look at our Android phones. Don't worry about Apple. Sprint, though, I think seems a bit more of a sure thing. I do not think we're going to have any 4G WiMAX support, unfortunately. I think we're going to have their 3G, which is a pretty nice network, their CDMA 3G network. Same thing, unfortunately, with Verizon. I think we're not going to have support for their awesome and awesomely fast LTE network. And AT&T hasn't even launched LTE in 10 cities yet. They don't have any phones that support it, so I would not expect LTE support on AT&T. However, I would suspect the AT&T version, and whether or not it's one phone that can support both CDMA and GSM, which is what we're hearing, I would expect AT&T's phone to have support for their HSPA Plus network, which is pretty robust. So disappointing. I would love some LTE action on an iPhone. Verizon's network is incredibly fast. AT&T's network is supposedly going to be incredibly fast, but it's not ready for prime time yet. And I don't think AT&T or Apple want to deal with the jokes about call dropping. So I think we're going to see an HSPA Plus variant. We'll probably have two iPhones that are going to be launched. One that's going to support the CDMA and GSM networks on Verizon, perhaps another one that's going to support it on Sprint. This is one thing where I hope I'm really wrong about, and they're going to surprise everybody and announce LTE support, and AT&T is going to say, fooled you, flip a switch, and suddenly the whole nation's going to have AT&T LTE support. Probably not. So guys, do you agree, disagree? Do you think that I'm dead on? Did I miss something? I want to know what you guys have to say. I'm very curious. This announcement, like all Apple keynotes, have been extremely well hyped, and I just want to know what you guys think we're going to get announced here. So leave your comments down below, and of course, stay tuned to Techno Buffalo on the 4th at 10 a.m. where we will be live blogging the entire shebang, shaboodle keynote. So check that out if you want some updates. Otherwise, check out the site. End of the day, we'll have full recaps for you. I am John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.